Hey, everybody, welcome to the March Customer Support Client Success Executive Brain Trust put on by Y Meadows. We just finished a fantastic conversation about a topic that I think is going to become even more relevant and a key part of customer support, customer success executives' role, which is complexity. As automation is coming into and is beginning to impact both success and support, a lot of what's happening is automation. And our speaker today was Todd Sale. And this is what he spoke about, is that the role of support and success is going to become ever more complex. And the reason for that is we can actually automate some of the easier tasks. And so how we as leaders are going to deal with this, how we manage complexity, how we go back is going to be a key part of our leadership and being able to stay relevant moving into the future. And so I've got this amazing group with me here today who participated in our event. We went into breakout rooms. We discussed strategies for dealing with complexity, ways in which you can adapt as a leader to the forthcoming world that we are living in. And so we're going to hear from them today. I'd first like to actually pass the time over to Owen Shribman. If you want to introduce yourself really quick, Owen, and then let us know some of those strategies that you yourself are dealing with. Over to you.
Sure. I'm Owen Shribman. I am the director of support for a company called FastSpring. We are an MOR model or a company that does a lot of e-commerce stuff. So our world gets kind of interesting when you deal with money and taxes and foreign currencies, a whole bunch of stuff. I've been with the company for a little under the year and have had a great opportunity to try to build out what is now becoming a very complex model. And lucky enough to, I guess I'll give Alan's company a shout out, because we are actually engaged in bringing in Y Meadows right now to solve some of our problems. So we tackled it, or I tackled it when I first came, is really try to understand the business, and more important, what was the expectation of not only our customers, but from the internal side of looking at the business. What can we do? What's expected? And then from there, it started looking at technology and figure out what can that technology to do. So I understood what my end game looked like and kind of reversed engineered it. We did, and thankfully, journey mapping turned out pretty high. That was one of the things that we've done, and we're still doing over and over, is that journey mapping of not only the external customer experience, but also the dependencies on networks, technology, processes, how does things flow from my organization to engineering, so forth and so forth. But we also created our internal side of the business as customers too. So we had two types of customers that we were journey mapping against. So our external facing customers and our internal customers. And by doing that, we had a great understanding when we started looking for better technology and how we wanted to partner with them, and setting the expectation with them of what we needed when we kind of came back in and found really good solutions that way. That's how we got approached it.
Excellent, Owen. And I'm really glad that you hit on journey mapping, because that was one of the most upvoted sticky notes today with how customers, this community of customer support and success executives are dealing with complexity is journey mapping. And so you've got to know, like you said, you've got to know your tech stack, but you also have to know how you're going to implement it too. So some very relevant advice there. Appreciate you sharing that, Owen.
Yeah, the one thing I'm going to add on journey mapping is what we found is we did not know, because documentation, especially when you bring in outside consultants to do work, we had no documentation on anything, and we found tons of hurdles. Then now that we fully document through the process of journey mapping, that we can go back down the line and say, all right, how do we clean these two technologies together, or this process, or whatever it may be. So it uncovered a whole lot of things that we're glad we did. Just now it adds more complexity to the problem.
Right. But you have a further understanding, and the complexity was there. You just didn't know. You just didn't know that exactly. It was, right? Yeah, perfect. All right, let's go over to Dan. Dan Lineweaver, what strategies do you have for dealing with these more complex issues?
Well, funny enough, Owen, you hit on a lot of the same types of things that I come across in my everyday as well. We're dealing with an implementation right now that it's funny enough, we're in that just beyond the minimum viable product. We've just moved into the slightly expanding and solving the problems. We did our journey mapping. We had all our ducks in a row, and everybody in all of the rooms agreed that we knew everything we were going to know, and we're going to find out what happens next. And we just hit that point where we've been running for about a month and a half. And of course, the list of things that we didn't know that we thought we knew, if you want to say it that way, is significantly larger, as it always is. The one thing we knew going in is this is going to happen. And it was a giant list of, oh my God, now that we're doing this and we see it and we understand, 1,000 things, like you talked about, 1,000 hurdles and complexities that no one thought of, because everyone's doing all the things that they're not supposed to do all the time. You talk to the people doing it and what's supposed to happen, and I think you find this, in most implementations, is that when you study what's done and then you redesign the process and you reiterate it, until you actually do it in the live environment, you will get it wrong. So you have to be, from a tech stack and a tech readiness standpoint, ready to take a prototype and only get it right the second time around. You can, but it's very costly, build hyper-scaling thinking into your rigid model, because it's the only way to get to 1 billion. If when you get to 1 million, it's all wrong. So my advice on two fronts on everybody is, when you do these things, do a prototype in a way that you can spend the first, could be 2 to 3 months or whatever time frame is appropriate for your business, completely turning it on its head. Because I have never seen these processes work well in a short period of time if they don't rapidly change in the first few months. If they didn't change, it means you sucked up what you got and it's a mess 6 months later, and another consulting firm's coming in to try to figure out what you actually do. And I watch the bigger companies just spin their wheels. I spent my life in Fortune 500 back in the day. That was our story for 20 years. It's just, they never did. By the time they did anything right, what they did was irrelevant. It was already past and gone, because it took IT 3 years to get there. On that same note, last thing I will say is, you might have heard me mention it, I think if anyone was in my breakouts with me, or is don't be Chipotle. Don't create a process that works perfectly for you and seems to make you more money and solve all of your problems, but frankly just doesn't actually work correctly for the shareholders or for the stakeholders in your business, your customers, whoever the end customer is. I've seen it too many times. I've seen it way too many times. Control the process, lock it down. Everybody's happy because there's no pain, but their customers hate them. Their customers hate them because you lock them in a process. Don't do it.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dan. That is a lot to chew on there, and you've given us a lot to think about. I want to open it up to the rest of our panelists. Does anyone else want to jump in and kind of add to what Dan and Owen has said, or even take it in a different direction? Feel free to unmute yourself. Fran?
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to piggyback on what Owen said, because that really resonated with me. At one of my former employers, we had a very complex product, like 30 products, 50 some versions. So what we were doing at the time to simplify is, you need to develop the customer journey, and couldn't agree that that exposes you to all the vulnerabilities with regards to process, communication, et cetera. But one of the things we did was created a product line business team, because we had to do that basically we had a team that was working on the customer journey, but we also looked at the product line where we were sunsetting, where we were investing, where we were migrating. And so we would prioritize with that product line business team led by a product leader, someone from support, someone from sales, someone from customer success, and someone from professional services. So when we were looking at that specific topic, we could take that customer journey, all those things that we learned, and implement it or integrate it into the change management. So it's like you get one thing done and then you realize the problem's bigger, 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 and more complex. And so the simplification is really important. And when you're dealing with that, the cross-functional collaboration.
Wonderful, Fran. Thank you so much. That's some great things. And a next step to think about is killing that, the principle of killing two birds with one stone. How do you maximize impact? In that cross collaboration, I think, is key there. All right, folks. Anyone else want to jump in with some last thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on one thing. And one thing we found that's really hard is scope creep. And I think we've all dealt with it, right? So one of the greatest things I think in the current project we're trying to implement right now is staying really focused around the specific scenarios, understanding the scope creep, but staying very focused on proving out your journey, your thought pattern. And then as you do that, you can always add to it. Keeping everyone aligned on this is the focus. This is what we're trying to accomplish today. And then parking lot, kind of what tomorrow looks like as you add and add and on. So especially with, and we've been very, very lucky with the people we've been dealing with lately on the current project, is trying to stay very, very focused around the scenario we're building out to prove out all the pieces that we need to prove out.
I just had to ask myself, are we having a phone call with entrepreneurs here? I literally feel like I'm in a founder call, because this is what we chat about all the time, minimum viable product. Like, it really has to be minimum and viable. And if you allow scope creep to happen, that's when you release a product that nobody uses, because you don't have an opportunity to learn as you continue to go. So thank you for those thoughts, everybody. Fantastic meeting. Thank you, everyone. If you are a success or support executive out there, please join us at our next Brain Trust. You can see that we've got some amazing and wonderful brains willing to share a lot and have that abundance mindset. So join us for that. I want to thank you all for your participation, and we'll see you all next month.
Thank you.